Well, for more on today's proceedings at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, let's bring into the conversation Dr Lennit Max, security analyst and former Western Cape Police Commissioner. Good to have you on the SABC as always, Dr Max. Let's start with that final point in Canny's report, right? The issue of Lieutenant General Senona basically saying he was an innocent go-between in a business transaction between his son Tado and Vusimuzi Kat Matlala to do with an apartment, yet says he does not know or was not in possession of the finer details of the nature of that relationship. Advocate Sesiba Loyi then saying, one of the commissioners, that she in fact believes that Senona's son was a proxy for the father who would have been the beneficiary from this apartment. Which of those two versions to you makes the most sense?
Good evening. Yes, it is inconceivable that Senona don't know much details with regards to the business transaction between Tatu, his son, and Matlala. There's also prima facie evidence that the relationship between him and Matlala was not a distant relationship or a coincident relationship. It was a tight relationship where, in his own evidence, he said yesterday that they had numerous, social interactions where they discuss issues, but they don't want to say if it was in regard to this particular medical, but Medi 24 contract. So, so I also believe that his son's involvement and his relationship with Tlala, there might be something coming his way if the transaction was successful.
And towards the latter part then of the day, we're dealing with this consignment of cocaine that had been seized, valued at more than 200 million rand, according to General Senona. It was kept at a facility in Port Shepstone, stolen, yet he believes that the security measures in place were sufficient, even though there were questions about whether or not the security system was in itself working, whether there were frequent patrols or an explicit instruction given for people or officers to, in fact, keep an eye on that particular office where this cocaine was stored. Is that sensible reasoning from someone who holds such a critical position as head of Hawks in a province?
I'm surprised that Senona is still in the Hawks. The duty of a senior officer in his position, and I'm taken from my own experience, if you see such a huge consignment of cocaine, before people place it into a particular facility, you as the commander will go first, inspect the premises, and then prove it or not, to make sure that everything possible is done to prevent any break-in or that this stuff might be disappear, as it did with that particular cocaine. So, as far as I'm concerned, it was a dereliction of duty as the commander of the Hawks not to do a prior inspection and to take the necessary steps and instruct people to guard or to visit on an hourly basis that particular facility.
And do you find it then as odd as the commissioners did that even after this cocaine had been stolen, 4 years ago, I think it was, to date, Senona still could not tell the commission if any arrests had been made, if any of that contraband had been recovered, and he says he hasn't actually followed up on the investigation?
Yes, that is a poor excuse. His explanation was that the docket was taken away from him because he was the complainant in the matter and been investigated by a different unit or at a different level. Now, irrespective, as a commander and with regards to such a huge amount of cocaine stolen under his watch, it is necessary for you, and it's actually obligatory to you, to follow up and ask the investigators or the commander in charge of those who investigate the case what is the progress, because to understand whether there's information, if his own personnel is not involved in that particular disappearance, in order for him to take the necessary action. The other thing which is for me not acceptable is the fact that he provided names of his personnel to be subjected to the screening process, lie detector test. But he didn't offer to do it by himself, because as was important for him to clear him first as the commander, because he got the authority to send people there and to make sure that this thing is guarded or not guarded. And he knows exactly what is going on there. So that he first go and set the example and undergo a lie detector test to clear him and then the rest of the personnel. But until today,
Interestingly, on the point you make about the lie detector test, when the evidence leader, Advocate Hassan, asked him about whether he would be willing now to take a lie detector test, Senona responded that, well, it's simply too late for that. So does the passage of time cancel out the necessity of him having to go through the same test?
Not at all. As long as those drugs are not found or even found, as the mere fact that the investigation is still ongoing to determine who's responsible for the loss of the drugs, he is still a person which might be questioned and be subjected to lie detector test. And I think if I can make a recommendation to him, is that he must do it ASAP, or if the commander listens to this conversation, the commander should insist and give him an instruction in terms of their regulations to be subjected to a lie detector test. Because for me, things are not cozy with regards of his evidence with regards to the loss of their drugs.
And lastly then, Dr. Max, the President's office confirming today that after receiving the interim report from the Commission, the Madlanga Commission, in mid-December, the President now wants the Police Minister to get the ball rolling on the establishment of a special task team to basically take the investigative work forward. Is that the best way to proceed with this? Is there not capacity internally in the police service to do that?
I think, let me first say that the Madlanga Commission, inclusive of the panelists as well as the evidence leaders, deserve my respect. And I'm sure that that report capacitated the President to issue this particular instruction to the Minister and the National Commissioner. The police do have a capacity, the anti-corruption units in the system. And I think the recommendation of the President, or the request or instruction of the President, is to ensure that there's speedy investigations without undue delays. For that reason, they have to put together a task team with dedicated, and I assume with dedicated prosecutors who can simultaneously evaluate the evidence which has been captured during the process, to speed up this investigation and to enroll it accordingly. However, there are two processes in this regard. The one is the criminal investigation, and the other one is the disciplinary action. And most of these people, officers mentioned in the letter, are still in service of the South African Police Service as well as the Metro Police Services. So the discipline procedures is totally independent from the criminal investigating process. And we will see much quicker results with regards to the disciplinary process other than to the criminal process, because the criminal process is very tedious, because I don't think any of the criminal action against those implicated will be finalized in 2026. But we will and might have results within 6 months with regards to the disciplinary processes.
Dr. Lennit Max, always good to get your views on the proceedings of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Dr. Max is a security analyst and the former Western Cape Police Commissioner.